Okay, hey guys. I wasn't planning on going live today because I actually had other plans, but they fell through, so here I am. So, welcome to Saturday live stream. Lisa for Truth being your host, that's me. And as always, first things first, uh, comment of the week. And it goes to, drumroll please, Robert X. Under the Olympian rulers. I liked the Greek gods. At least they all have some human weaknesses. Much better than that other quote unquote perfect God that isn't that perfect if you believe the book. Loved this one. Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you all for watching my videos. And we also have Today in History. President Clinton is impeached. After nearly 14 hours of debate, the House of Representatives approves approved two articles of impeachment against President Bill Clinton, charging him with lying under oath to a federal grand jury and obstructing justice. Clinton, the second president in American history to be impeached, vowed to finish his term. Um, for you non-Americans, um, impeachment of a president is along the lines of an indictment of a private citizen. And impeachment doesn't mean he's removed from office. That is only after the trial, and the Senate sits on the trial, and they are only removed from office if the Senate finds them guilty. And no one has been removed from office. Richard Nixon was the other president impeached, and he actually resigned. In November 1995, Clinton began an affair with Monica Lewinsky, a 21-year-old unpaid intern. Over the course of a year and a half, the president and Lewinsky had nearly a dozen sexual encounters in the White House. In April 1996, Lewinsky was transferred to the Pentagon. That summer, she first confided in Pentagon co-worker Linda Tripp about her relationship with the president. In 1997, with the relationship over, Tripp began secretly to record conversations with Lewinsky in which Lewinsky gave Tripp details about the affair. In December, lawyers for Paula Jones, who was suing the president on harassment charges, subpoenaed Lewinsky. In January 1998, allegedly under the recommendation of the president, Lewinsky filed an affidavit in which she denied ever having had a relationship with him. 5 days later, Tripp contacted the office of Kenneth Starr, the Whitewater Independent Counsel, to talk about Lewinsky and the tape she made of their conversation. Tripp, wired by the FBI, working with Starr, met with Lewinsky again, and on January 16th, Lewinsky was taken by FBI agents and U.S. attorneys to a hotel where she was questioned and offered immunity if she cooperated with the prosecution. A few days later, the story broke, and Clinton publicly denied the allegation, saying, "I did not have relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky." In late July, lawyers for Lewinsky and Starr worked out a full immunity agreement covering both Lewinsky and her parents, all of whom Starr had threatened with prosecution. On August 6th, Lewinsky appeared before the grand jury to begin her testimony, and on August 17th, President Clinton testified. Contrary to his testimony in the Paula Jones harassment case, President Clinton acknowledged to prosecutors from the Office of Independent Counsel that he had had an affair with Miss Lewinsky. And it goes on from there. But I think you get the drift. Got it from history.com/thisdayinhistory. So, that was a nice stroll down memory lane. Now hey, Mr. Shadow Kitty, how's it going? So, getting on to our making fun of the Bible. We are in Genesis chapter 29. Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the open country with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because the flocks were watered from that well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, "My brothers, where are you from?" "We're from Haran," they replied. He said to them, "Do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson?" "Yes, we know him," they answered. Then Jacob asked them, "Is he well?" "Yes, he is," they said. "And here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." "Look," he said, "the sun is still high. It is not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to pasture." "We can't," they replied, "until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep." While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherd. Wouldn't that make her a shepherdess? I don't know. Sometimes my mind goes to the weirdest places. When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of his uncle Laban, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah, so she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home, and there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." This is where it gets kind of interesting. And if you know the story, you know why. But I will give you my insights as I go along. After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you're a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel." Uh, Laban said, "It's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me." So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Really? The dude saw her for what, 2 hours? Come on. Fell in love with her? That doesn't happen in real life. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to make love to her." So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and Jacob made love to her. And Laban gave his servant Zilpah to his daughter as her attendant. I want to know why Jacob didn't see this. I mean, obviously there was a difference between Rachel and Leah. So, I mean, even by lamplight, he should have seen it. When morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?" Okay, stopping there. So now the tables are turned. Now the deceiver is the deceived. Because remember, Jacob deceived Esau out of both his blessing and his birthright. So the deceived has now become the deceiver has now become the deceived. Yeah, karma, people, karma. But in you'll see this throughout the Jewish writings. The, it's a it's a theme, repeating something over and over and over again. I don't know why it's a theme in Jewish writing. It just is. You know, you have certain themes. You have, um, the deceiver and the deceived, and then the tables flip and the deceiver becomes the deceived, and then you've got the 3 days thing, and then you've got the 70 years, and then you've got the 40 years, and then you've got 70 people. So I don't know why it's a thing. It just is. Verse 26. Laban replied, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week. Then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work." And Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her attendant. Jacob made love to Rachel also, and his love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah, and he worked for Laban another 7 years. Well, like, duh, because he asked for Rachel, not Leah. But like I said, you see themes like this repeated. You know, it's just the way it is in Jewish literature. Verse 31, when the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive, but Rachel remained childless. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now." Because, of course, in this day and age, women were property and baby factories. And that was about it. Verse 33, she conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too. So she named him Simeon. Again she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. So he was named Levi. Now it doesn't say how far apart these sons were, but it does seem like they came in quick succession, and that is not good for a woman, especially in this day and age. Verse 35, she conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, this time I will praise the Lord. So she named him Judah. Then she stopped having children. And I just want to say right here, it's not like I believe any of this ever happened to begin with. I'm just, you know, uh, giving my take on things. If it happened, which I don't believe it did, I try to say that every time I go through these live streams because I don't know if people are watching them for the first time or not. Chapter 30. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, give me children or I'll die. Jacob became angry with her and said, am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children? Then she said, here is Bilhah, my servant. Sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and I too can build a family through her. And again, this is the same thing. Like I said, you see these themes over and over again. This is the same thing Sarah did with Abraham. Sarah said, take my maid Hagar, you know? And I don't understand how Rachel can say, this is my son, when it's obviously not her son. But that's just me. Maybe in this culture it was, you know, it was normal to do that. Who knows? So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife. Jacob slept with her, and she became pregnant and bore him a son. Then Rachel said, God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son. Because of this, she named him Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, I have had a great struggle with my sister, and I have won. So she named him Naphtali. Okay, now I want to know, what did Laban think was going to happen? Did he think this was going to end well? And if he did, where was his mind? When Leah saw she had stopped having children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, what good fortune! So she named him Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. Then Leah said, how happy I am! The women will call me happy. So she named him Asher. During wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and found some mandrake plants, which he brought to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. But she said to her, wasn't enough. Wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes too? Hi, Micro. Very well, Rachel said. He can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes. Like I said, did Laban think this was going to end well? So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. You must sleep with me, she said. I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So she slept with her. So he slept with her that night. So now Jacob's a gigolo. Yeah, and this is supposed to be a family-friendly book. God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a fifth son. Then Leah said, God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband. So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor because I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. You said it, Microraptor. Let me put that up on the screen. Verse 21. Sometime later, she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. So she named him Joseph and said, May the Lord add to me another son. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, Send me on my way so I can go back to my own homeland. Give me my wives and children, for whom I have served you, and I will be on my way. You know how much work I've done for you. But Laban said, If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. He added, Name your wages, and I will pay them. I thought God frowned on divination. I mean, isn't that what he killed all those people for? You know, all the Canaanites and Perizzites and all that stuff. Anyway, um, moving on. Verse 25. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, Oh, I've already read that. Verse 29. Jacob said to him, You know how I have worked for you and how your livestock has fared under my care. The little you had before I came has increased greatly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I have been. But now, when may I do something for my own household? What shall I give you? He asked. Don't give me anything, Jacob replied. But if you will do this one thing for me, I will go on tending your flocks and watching over them. Let me go through all your flocks today and remove from them every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, and every spotted or speckled goat. They will be my wages, and my honesty will testify for me in the future whenever you check on the wages you have paid me. Any goat in my possession that is not speckled or spotted, or any lamb that is not dark colored, will be considered stolen. Agreed, said Laban. Let it be as you have said. That same day he removed all the male goats that were streaked or spotted, and all the speckled or spotted female goats, all that had white on them, and all the dark colored lambs, and he placed them in the care of his sons. Then he put them then he put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob, while Jacob continued to tend the rest of Laban's flocks. Jacob, however, took fresh cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and made white stripes on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood of the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all the watering troughs, so they would be directly in front of the flocks when they came to drink. When the flocks were in heat and came to drink, they made it in front of the branches, and they bore young that were streaked or speckled or spotted. I'm going to stop there. You would think that the God of the universe would know how genetics works. This is why I don't believe in this God anymore. Verse 40. Jacob set apart the young of the flock by themselves, but made the rest face the streaked and dark-colored animals that belonged to Laban. Thus he made separate flocks for himself and did not put them with Laban's animals. Whenever the stronger females were in heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs in front of the animals so they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there. So the weak animals went to Laban and the strong ones to Jacob. In this way, the man grew exceedingly prosperous and came to own large flocks and female and male servants and camels and donkeys. Again, if this is God of the universe, who made genes and DNA and all that wonderful scientific stuff we know about today, why doesn't he know about this stuff? Chapter 31. Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken everything our father owned and has gained all this wealth from what belonged to our father. And Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not what it had been. Well, like, duh. Verse 4. So Jacob sent word to Rachel and Leah to come out to the fields where his flocks were. He said to them, I see that your father's attitude toward me is not what it was before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I've worked for your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me by changing my wages 10 times. However, God has not allowed him to harm me. If he's... Well, wait a minute. How did Laban change Jacob's wages 10 times? I only saw 2. Well, actually, I only saw 1 because he tricked him with Leah. And then he gave him Rachel for 7 more years of labor. And then Laban said, yeah, you can go ahead and take the spotted and speckled of my flock. That's okay. It's no big deal. And as far as I know, it doesn't say here that Laban was saying anything like, I want my flocks back. I want those spotted and speckled things back. It doesn't say that here. But that would only be 3 times, not 10. Verse 8. If he said, the speckled ones will be your wages, then all the flocks gave birth to speckled young. And if he said, the streaked ones will be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked young. So God has taken away your father's livestock and has given them to me. In breeding season, I once had a dream in which I looked up and saw that the male goats mating with the flock were streaked, speckled, or spotted. The angel of God said to me in a dream, Jacob. I answered, here I am. And he said, look up and see that all the male goats mating with the flock are streaked, speckled, or spotted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. Again, what has Laban done? Aside from the fact that Jacob got his comeuppance by Laban deceiving him, by giving him Rachel or Leah instead of Rachel, which, by the way, is karma. Not that I really believe in karma or anything like that, but I think you know what I mean. Verse 13, I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and where you made a vow to me. Now leave this land at once and go back to your native land. Then Rachel and Leah replied, do we still have any share in the inheritance of our father's estate? Does he not regard us as foreigners? Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what was paid for us. Surely all the wealth that God took away from our father belongs to us and our children. So do whatever God has told you. Okay. I do not agree with people selling their daughters. That's not what I'm saying. But in this culture at this time, it was perfectly acceptable. So why on earth do they have a problem with Laban selling them? And like I said, I in no way approve of fathers selling their daughters into marriage. Then Jacob, verse 17, then Jacob put his children and his wives on camels, and he drove all his livestock ahead of him, along with all the goods he had accumulated in Paddan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household gods. Moreover, Jacob deceived Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him he was running away. So he fled with all he had, crossed the Euphrates River, and headed for the hill country of Gilead. Again, we have Jacob deceiving. Only this time he's deceiving Laban. And this is who God supposedly chooses to father a nation. Am I the only one seeing a problem with this? Verse 22. On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. Taking his relatives with him, He pursued Jacob for 7 days and caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. Then God came to Laban and the Aramean in a dream at night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country of Gilead when Laban overtook him, and Laban and his relatives camped there too. Then Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done? You've deceived me, and you've carried off my daughters like captives in war." No, he didn't. They're his wives. Why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Why didn't you tell me so I could send you away with joy and singing to the music of timbrels and harps? You didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters goodbye. You have done a foolish thing. I have the power to harm you. But last night, the God of your father said to me, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." I have no idea, Microraptor. I haven't seen The Handmaid's Tale. Now you have gone off because you long to return to your father's household. But why did you steal my gods? Jacob answered Laban, "I was afraid, because I thought you would take your daughters away from me by force. But if you find anyone who has your gods, that person shall not live. In the presence of our relatives, see for yourself whether there is anything of yours here with me, and if so, take it." Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods. Verse 33. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the 2 female servants, but he found nothing. After he came out of Leah's tent, he entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them inside her camel's saddle and was sitting on them. Laban searched through everything in the tent, but found nothing. Rachel said to her father, "Don't be angry, my lord, that I can't stand up in your presence. I'm having her woman's issue." That's not what it says in the NIV. But it's that time of month, basically, that she says she's having. So he searched, but could not find the household gods. Verse 36. So Jacob was angry and took Laban to task. "What is my crime?" he asked Laban. "How have I wronged you that you hunt me down? Now that you have searched through all my goods, what have you found that belongs to your household? Put it here in front of your relatives and mine, and let them judge between the 2 of us. I have been with you for 20 years now. Your sheep and goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten rams from your flocks. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself, and you demanded payment from me for whatever was stolen by night or day. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime, and the cold at night, and sleep fled from my eyes. It was like this for the 20 years I was in your household. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flocks, and you changed my wages 10 times. Again, I don't see that. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, you would surely have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen my hardship and the toil of my hands, and last night he rebuked you. Laban answered Jacob, the women are my daughters, the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks. All you see is mine. Yet what can I do today about these daughters of mine, or about the children they have borne? Come now, let's make a covenant, you and I, and let it serve as a witness between us. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. He said to his relatives, gather some stones. So they took some stones and piled them in a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar Sahadutha, and Jacob called it Gilead. Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. That is why it was called Gilead. It was also called Mizpah, because he said, may the Lord keep watch between you and me when we are away from each other. If you mistreat my daughters, or if you take any wives besides my daughters, even though no one is with us, remember that God is a witness between you and me. Laban also said to Jacob, here is this heap, and here is this pillar I have set up between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not go past this heap to your side to harm you, and you will not go past this heap and pillar to my side to harm me. May the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. So Jacob took an oath in the name of the fear of his father Isaac. He offered a sacrifice there in the hill country and invited his relatives to a meal. After they had eaten, they spent the night there. Early the next morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then he left and returned home. And you thought your family was dysfunctional. That's all I got to say. There is some really dysfunctional crap going on in the Bible. And we haven't even got to the juicy stuff yet. I mean, the juicy stuff comes way down the line. We're still in Genesis. Anyway, if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Please leave comments in the comment section. Not only do I love hearing from you, but it triggers the YouTube algorithm. Also, I have 2 stores. One is on Teespring, one is on my website. Both links are in the description. Go visit my stores. It is Christmas time. You know, there are some things on there. Teespring has more than my website store has. I will tell you that. But they make great gifts. And thank you for coming. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.